Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Good day, viewers. Do you know what pesticides are? Are they dangerous? Are they harmful? Can they kill? Are they beneficial to us in our daily use? These questions are going to be answered on this program, Agriculture on the Move. I am Phillip Sydney, your host. The Pesticides and Toxic Chemical Control Board of St. Lucia, in conjunction with the Pesticide Boards of the Caribbean, commemorates Pesticides Week in St. Lucia. The theme, if I may go to my notes, protecting children from pesticides. The children are very vulnerable, and of course they are exposed to chemicals every day. Children have been poisoned over the years. Children have gotten killed over the years as a result of their exposure to chemicals. Today with me, the answers and discussion surrounds kids that are exposed to chemicals and what are we going to do about that. With me in studio is Dr. Frederick, who is the district medical doctor, works with the Ministry of Health. Welcome to the program, sir.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me. Good morning.
I am so happy to have you because on just chatting with you before, I got to know that you are the son of a good friend of mine, Marcus.
Yes.
Very, very pleased to know that, because Marcus and myself, we go a very, very long way from back in the New Village days.
Oh, my.
So we are very, very, very close in that regard. So welcome to the program again.
Yes.
Give me your own perspective of kids that are exposed based on the theme. What do you think?
Well, I think you're right in terms of that special vulnerability that kids have. But I don't want the wider public to forget that we all are at risk when it comes to the use of pesticides. Mm-hmm. So while we are focusing on the effects it may have on kids, I want us to be cognizant that we all can be affected, because we all eat, we all consume raw fruits, we all drink water. Whether we go to the supermarket or whether we buy locally, there's some chain, there's in some way or form we in touch or connected to pesticides, especially in 2015. Even those people who go organic, meaning they buy things considered to be exempted from the use of pesticides, you just never know. You have it in your homes, you have it in your car, you have it on the bus you travel on. The air condition, the air freshener they use can be considered a pesticide. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because if you consider the definition of a pesticide, it's any substance that can be used to control or kill a living organism. Mm-hmm. We say pest because most times those organisms are organisms we don't want. And remember, it can be plant life or animal life. We don't want the plants that are parasitizing our livestock, the plants that are killing other plants, and parasites that are parasitizing our livestock. We also don't want those living organisms that can carry germs, considered germs or microorganisms, to other human beings. Mm-hmm. So we all are exposed.
In your line of work, have you ever been exposed to kids coming to you who some way were in contact with chemicals?
Oh, definitely, definitely. A child can be exposed to pesticides in many ways, but in my experience, the most common way was through tampering with storage bottles that were improperly labeled. Mm-hmm. That's the most frequent cause in our line of work. Mm-hmm. But I could recommend later some steps we can take to prevent that from happening.
Okay. Now, the kids how would you say they are vulnerable?
Well, kids are vulnerable, first of all, because they're not mature, they're not educated. They don't know any better. They're very inquisitive. Yeah. So while you may see something, you may read the label first. You may wonder what it is. You understand? Mm-hmm. Kids, on the other hand, they're not aware of that. They're ignorant. They're innocent. Mm-hmm. So in that nature, they're more susceptible to tampering or being in contact with pesticides. Mm-hmm. Also, they're at a stage in their growth where they're developing rapidly. So the effects of pesticides on an adult may vary. Mm-hmm. When it comes to a child, the effects may be far more reaching than when it comes to an adult.
So what should the adult do to ensure that that child is protected or being exposed to chemicals?
Well, it starts with us. And although we said we all are susceptible, we have to target special groups. You have to target agricultural workers. You have to target families of agricultural workers. Or families, though you may not have an agricultural worker in the family, you may live in an agricultural community. Your child may go to a school in an agricultural community. So you need to see, how am I linked to pesticides in any way? Where do I get my water from? Where do I get my food from? And the agricultural worker himself must start, him or herself must start with protection. Protective gear for eyes, for your face, for your body, whether it is you need to wear gloves or gown or goggles. You must also remember the type of protection you have. Many people wear latex sometimes when they're handling pesticides, but it's been considered that the butyl rubber gloves are the best, having a percentage of 96% prevention when it comes to contact or contamination with pesticides. So we must start with protecting ourselves. And after we protect ourselves, we must also ensure that those things we use to protect ourselves, that we handle them properly. It makes no sense that you're not contaminated because you wore the right type of gloves, yet you bring the gloves into your home, it's on your bed, it's on your kitchen counter. What's the point? So all what we use, we need to store it properly. So herein lies one of the pillars in preventing it, storage. When it comes to kids, there's certain recommendations. For example, it is said that you should store pesticides at least on high shelves, at least 4 feet, because the average child is somewhere there or below 4 feet. So you try to put it in a place that's out of reach of kids. It's better if you store it in a garden cabinet than if you store it inside the house, although sometimes we have no choice. So when we do store it in the homes, we have to make sure that it's properly labeled. You have people storing pesticides in cans that look like milk jugs, in bottles that look like Coca-Cola bottles. Oh, I don't know. There was an instance some time ago where a child, I think Gromoxone was stored in a Coca-Cola bottle, and the child took it and drank it because they thought it was Coke. Can you blame the child?
Not at all.
No.
So, but going back a bit, yes, this week is focused on pesticides or the use of pesticides. But do you think, for your line of work, being in the out districts, do you think this is an area that needs to be given attention more regularly to actually to be in your face?
Yes. And once you can save one life, it should be in your face. One life is important. And though we may not get many poisoning when it comes to adults, a child's life is important. And we have registered quite significant number of children coming in. Deaths are not common, but we've had close calls. So I think it is very, very, very important. It's significant. And yes, it should be in your face.
In terms of antidotes, at the farm level, at the household level, do you recommend that there should be some measure before, like as an emergency, before they get to you at the hospitals? Would you recommend that?
There are two, in the case of exposure, the immediate action should be twofold. the first one should be get.
Hold that thoughts. We're due for our first break. You are watching Agriculture on the Move. We are due for our first break. Stay tuned. Back soon.
The Pesticides and Toxic Chemicals Control Board reminds all importers of such chemicals that according to the Pesticides and Toxic Chemicals Act, only chemicals which have been registered and granted approval by the board can be legally imported for use in St. Lucia. Agricultural and household chemicals that are not licensed for use in St. Lucia can be harmful to its users and the general public. Before placing orders, importers are advised to check the approved list of pesticides or household chemicals to ensure that they can be legally imported. An import license must be obtained from the Research and Development Division of the Ministry of Agriculture and must be submitted to the Customs and Excise Department to facilitate the clearance of the consignment. For further information, contact the Ministry of Agriculture's Research Division at Union or call telephone numbers 468-5600 or 468-5602.
Welcome back to the program, Agriculture on the Move. We're discussing to protect children from pesticides. Dr. Frederick, we're talking about, emergencies.
Yes.
First response, parent discovered that the child has drank cyclamoxone at home.
Right.
What's the first thing that he or she should do?
Well, the first thing that you should do, if there are two people, one can alert the emergency department, and the other one could start decontamination, because the different pesticides are individual. Mm-hmm. The effects are different. Hence, the treatment is specialized, because one might affect your nervous system, one might affect something else. So the actual treatment should be left to the professionals. On the scene, however, like I was saying, the first thing we should do is have the objective of getting that person to the nearest health center as soon as possible. Whilst we are preparing to do that, we can start decontamination. Most pesticides, you could decontaminate using running water. Copious, abundant amount of running water. There are special parts on your body, like your eyes, your face, your scalp, the underarms, the pubic region, that absorb pesticides much quicker than other parts of your skin. Mm-hmm. So we need to concentrate on washing, irrigating the areas, removing all contaminated clothes. And people who are assisting need to be careful that they themselves, in the decontamination process, they themselves don't become contaminated. Contaminated clothes and protective gear should be put in a special sack or in a special bin, and it should be stored properly. Whilst you may want to have heard of drinking this and drinking that, sometimes drinking certain things or certain portions could really make it worse.
Yes.
It may be more detrimental than...
Gramoxone, just cut it short, I was told that if you drink water with gramoxone, you are hastening the person's death.
Well, caustic substances, in any shape or form, anything where you spread the effect of the substance, anything where you cause vomiting, thereby you mobilize the substance, mm-hmm. you could enhance or you could worsen the caustic effect. So it may not be the best thing to do. Mm-hmm. And the only exception I may allow the public is that in the case of oily pesticides or fatty pesticides, you are allowed to use common soap, yes, or detergent, because it's better. Water may not be able to remove an oily pesticides, but the rest, the vast majority, abundant, copious washing is very important. Okay. You could begin with the eyes. If you have any contact lenses, it's advised that you take it out, and taking it out not with clean hands. So you could start by cleaning your hands, and then with your hands you could clean the other parts of your body. If you have a running pipe, a pipe with running water, somebody could open it for you whilst you put your eyes, your face under that. As soon as you can, get to the nearest health center, get to the nearest emergency room.
Let us look at the household pesticides. I mean, commonly used, to kill mosquitoes.
Right.
Right. I can recall as a youngster not knowing better. The aerosols are armed with some, nice scented, commodities in there.
Right.
And I have seen people actually spray, babies are in the crib sleeping, and they
Yes.
will spray the room, not knowing that is dangerous. I used to stay in while I spray, and the house is closed. I mean, can we now tell people how dangerous these things are?
Oh yes, the effects of pesticides are far-reaching. Some you see the effects immediately, and some it's long-term or cumulative. Meaning you may have been exposed for years to something, and it's only later in life you develop some illness or disease, cancer for example, and only then do you find out there was research that showed that, hey, there was a link between that pesticide that I use and the certain type of cancer that I have. It is possible. That's why we always advise, not only do we remove other human beings, children especially, away. Pregnant women are vulnerable as well, because the unborn child is developing rapidly again.
That's right.
The arm is not formed fully yet. The brain is not formed fully yet. So if you affect it, the long-term effects, it's really detrimental. You must have kids out. You must take their toys out. You must be careful, especially in wet conditions, not only on the farm but in the homes. When there is moisture, it facilitates the spread. It facilitates, the contact. So we must be careful with that. You could have basic irritation. You could have hormone alterations. You could even have certain types of cancers, like I said. So we must be careful.
And I was also told it can even affect men with their libidos.
Oh, really?
That's what I was told. I'm not sure about that one.
Well, I'm not sure about that one either.
Yeah, but I know in the agricultural field, some years ago, there were some real harsh chemicals that were used in the banana industry, the Fumagone and the Fumazone. And then years later, they came back to compensate those farmers because they found out that it definitely interfered with not only their libido, but other problems that they face down the road. So it is very, very, very important to know that.
The libido could be just one of the many effects of the hormonal changes in both men and women. So yes, it may be a possibility, but it might just be one.
Yes.
And on a national level, I'm sorry to say, when you're looking at those effects, you must look at what's costly for the nation. You must look at what's causing deaths. You must look at what's causing our absenteeism. You must look at what's making our health sector strain. These are the things we need to place emphasis on.
The other thing too, maybe, I'm not sure, maybe you can answer that, but the Pesticide Control Board, they are the ones who would make sure that certain pesticides come in or don't come in. The aerosols that come in, I mean, how do we know, I mean, they are the best ones to use in our homes?
Okay. First of all, we must take into account our socioeconomic status. The pesticides that Europe can afford may not be the same pesticides that the Eastern Caribbean can afford. Some may say it shouldn't be, but the fact remains that what we buy and what we use are affected by our financial power. And the other thing too is, though there may be regulatory boards, national, regional, even worldwide boards that regulate those things, they still come with specific indications. That's why we tell the farmers, or we tell the agricultural workers, you must always read the label, because there are some things that are allowed to use in the home because the effects are acceptable or admissible. However, there are other herbicides that even in an agricultural setting, there is somebody designated to mix them. There is somebody designated to apply them. Not all the agricultural workers can use all the herbicides or all the pesticides. So we need to take everything individually. So there are different levels of use. And that's where the boards come into play.
Okay.
And that's where we need to adhere to the instructions and the indications. And we have to start by reading the labels.
Okay. We are due for another break. You are watching Agriculture on the Move. We are due for our second break. Stay tuned.
Messieurs et dames, Mamay Saint-Lucie, Tansa, est-ce qu'on savent l'année chimique agricole avec l'autre chimique nous a servi en caille, qu'a échoué en pays sans enregistrer, et que ça peut affecter santé publique là, généralement, l'année yon comité en place qui ni responsabilité pour enregistrer, contrôler et bailler permission pour toute chimique qui a entré en Saint-Lucie. Pour importer ces chimiques ça là, fait yon application pour joindre en licence. Pour plus d'informations, contactez Office Research en Lyon, en ministre agricole, numéro téléphone 468-5600 et bien 468-560D. Messieurs, pas mener pièces vieilles chimiques qui pas registrées pour dommager santé PPIA souple. Information ça a sorti par ministre agricole.
Welcome back to the program, Agriculture on the Move. Dr. Fredericks, let's go back to the home a bit. Apart from the aerosols that are being used, there are other baits, rat baits, and to my mind, this is even more dangerous than even the aerosols because, you know, they are put in strategic areas, you know, babies are crawling on the floor.
Yes.
They're very curious.
Yes.
What advice do you have?
Well, when it comes to rat baits, we have to, or anything that's within the reach of children, we have to try to see if we can use a pesticide that is adequate or specific to our environment. If I have a child at home, I don't think it's a good idea to have rat bait on the floor where my child crawls. If I have a child at home, I don't think I should have a nice bright bottle of spray that might attract my child on the floor or in a cabinet or somewhere where he or she can reach it. It's supposed to attract pests, not human beings. So try to avoid them at all costs. There are many steps you can take to eliminate pests which do not involve the use of pesticides. Perhaps we could start with those. There are many things, for example, mosquitoes, and you hear it all the time, all the things we should do to prevent the breeding of mosquitoes. Why must we breed it and then use pesticides to kill it and kill ourselves in the process? When it comes to rats, rodents, what can we do? Can we manage our garbage better? Can we dispose of it better? You understand? Also too, I know children are vulnerable because they really don't know. But in today's world, you'll be surprised the level of knowledge a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old has. So it doesn't hurt to educate them. It doesn't hurt to tell them what to stay away from. It doesn't hurt to let them know, hey, to learn the word poison. Poison, it can kill you. You die, no more. You understand? Although some parents may not want to use those words, and I understand. But you need to let them know it's very harmful. We could start there. We could start when we've exhausted all those other means. Then we may consider pesticides. And even when we do, we need to consider ones that are not going to be easily be contacted by kids. So we have to be careful.
What are the further steps to be taken to ensure that the kids and ourselves are well protected from the use of chemicals?
Well, if I were to summarize everything, I would start with protecting ourselves. Using the proper protective gear, like we said earlier in the show. And even after using the proper protective gear, we need to make sure that we manage or handle that protective gear properly. It's still because it's contaminated. We need to make sure that we ourselves decontaminate properly after the use of pesticides. Make sure we wash and clean abundantly before we interact with others, before we come home. Do we come home with that protective gear? Where do we put the boots when we come home? So we have to start by protecting ourselves and handling the things we use to protect ourselves properly, keep them away from the home. Now that we've already protected ourselves, we could go further with the products. We must store the products properly. How do we store in terms of kids? Always try to keep them high on shelves, above 4 feet. Keep them in shelves that are locked or that have locks that are child-proof. You understand? If you could keep it away from the homes entirely, that's even better. Ensure that you always label the bottles or the containers, the receptacles, wherever you store those pesticides, it needs to be labeled. It may even need a label. Part of the labeling may entail warnings. Put the word hazardous, put the word harmful, put dangerous, put something on it. Never, ever, ever store pesticides in receptacles that are attractive. Never store pesticides in other receptacles that are mislabeled, in a Coca-Cola bottle, in a milk jug, in something that a child or other human beings always use. That is a mistake. Educate your child. Educate your family members. Let them know that it's harmful. Let them know what the effects are. You could research it yourself as well. So these are some of the steps that you must take. And I think if we do those things, we could go a long way in preventing the loss of life and poisoning.
There are other measures, apart from using the chemicals that are harsh and to kill. Do you recommend repellents?
Repellents fall under pesticides. Any substance that is used to control or kill or ward off any living organisms we find noxious, unwanted, detrimental, is considered a pesticide.
But it can be less toxic? For example, the biological chemicals that we use, for example, there's things that we use like garlic barrier, neem, that we use as insecticides in our agricultural gardens, etc. I mean, are they not the safer ones to use than to use the harsh chemical?
I think purely organic means much better than those elaborated in a lab. So the organic repellents like neem or other animals, other herbs, other plants, if you could use natural means, definitely.
Any final words from you, sir?
Oh, I'm just happy to be here, and I hope we've done enough to create awareness or raise the level of consciousness when it comes to the use and handling of pesticides.
And any final words for the people that you work in the rural areas, the farmers, the housewives? Any words of advice to them?
Yes, I think we can do it. Just remember, always label properly.
Okay.
Keep it away from the home. And it begins with you. Make sure you don't bring it into your home.
That's right.
By your clothes and by your boots, your protective gear. And for everybody else, you buy an apple in the supermarket, you may be contaminating yourself.
Sure.
Wash it properly.
Very well.
All right.
Well said. Dr. Frederick, I want to thank you for being here.
Okay.
And I thank you for the admonition. And I thank you again for you going back to the community and to tell those persons out there. It's important. We need to save their lives. And of course, the vulnerable child,
yes,
they need to be taken care of. All what that can be done, we need to do it in a very systematic way. So I'd like to thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me, sir.
You have been watching Agriculture on the Move. I'd like to thank you, the viewers, for watching the program. And today's program, I want you, the housewives, the farmers, the fathers, parents, be careful with chemicals. They can kill you if they are not used properly. The kids are vulnerable. Make sure you don't expose chemicals to the kids. Please, please save a life.
Yeah.
I'm Phillip Sydney. Thank you for viewing.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole en mouvement.